So here we are all together this evening from Boston, Connecticut, Barcelona, New York. I love the internet. It's really special how we can all get together and talk about things. So my name is Amanda Steinberg, for those of you who don't know me, and I am the founder of DailyWorth, which I started 8 years ago because I had thought I was doing everything right with regards to making a high income, working really hard, budgeting, etc. And I still went deep into debt. And I was so utterly frustrated with that I decided to start publishing online so that I could talk to lots of women like you. And what I learned, what I was determined to learn was to figure out, why is it that financial advice is so prescriptive, it's so linear, and it's given out in a certain way, and only a few people seem to be able to follow it, and the rest of us doesn't necessarily work. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is the culmination of a very long journey that has resulted in, I'm just looking at some of the conversations here. We are able to fix it. For those of you who still can't hear, we've fixed it for most folks, and we have Taylor who's working on it. And I will see what the deal is. Hold on one sec. Time out. Coming back. Okay. So where were we? I am going to talk to you about the 8 years of work in terms of figuring out, why is it that financial advice seems to be so prescriptive and no one else can figure it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a presentation on the results that I have found, and please continue to ask questions based on the side links. I'm seeing all of the conversation here, and I look forward to really making this interactive so that I can answer your questions, as well as tell you some really core ideas about what is it's going to make your finances work or not work. So here I am going to turn on my screen share and share a presentation with you. So here is a not so glamorous picture of me from back in 2009. Back in 2009, I was running a software company, and I was making multi-six figures as a computer programmer. At the same time, I had a baby, as you can see there in my lap. I am not pregnant with another child. That is literally 4 days after I gave birth, in order to go back to work, because that's what I had to do. Why did I have to do that? Because see that house that's on the left? That is not the exact house that I bought, but it looks quite similar to the house that I had bought. I thought it was an antique, quaint, lovely, beautiful house. And unfortunately, I had never bought a house before, so I really had no idea what owning a house like this really entailed. It turns out that houses like this are incredibly expensive. So back in 2009, I thought I was buying investments. I thought a house was an investment. I thought that owning a business was an investment, and all these things were ultimately going to enable my finances to grow. Well, it didn't actually work out that way. Between the tax bills that I got and the increasing income, which just caused more and more taxes, as well as the fact that the house that I purchased in 2006 then went significantly down in value, as well as all the windows that needed to be replaced. It was as if I was following a script of what I thought meant financial responsibility, but actually put me really deep in debt. Not to mention the sleep deprivation of being a mother, and the sleep deprivation of being an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter how many rules or budgets or goals or plans you follow. In my case, if you take on all these things at once, it's going to have a pretty significant impact on your finances. And yet everywhere I went looking for answers, all of the answers seemed somewhat similar to me. They all kind of, it was fascinating to me now, reflecting back on that period of my life, the type of advice that folks would give me. They would assume because I was a woman that I had a spending problem. And they would say, well, Amanda, are you shopping? Are you traveling too much? And I would be like, no, I'm not shopping and I'm not traveling too much. The problem is that I was I had all this home ownership problem. It wasn't like I was spending on clothes, is that I was spending on babysitting so that I could work to pay for the house that I couldn't afford. This is clearly very different than a self-control issue related to overspending on clothes. Not that that hasn't plagued me at some points in my life, but in this case, it really had nothing to do with that. And yet, as you can imagine, at this point, I think I was $90,000 in debt. I was going from book to book, expert to all these different places, looking for answers. And I would then try to implement self-restraint, austerity, lack of spending, and yet none of it seemed to make any difference in my life. This is what inspired me to launch DailyWorth. I just had a feeling that it wasn't necessarily that the advice that I was getting was wrong, but the way it was being delivered to me, for whatever reason, was not making it turn into financial results that actually had an impact on my finances. That was the mission of DailyWorth when I started it, was to say, let me take all of the ideas of personal finance that are out there, and I'm instead going to repackage them, test them on myself, test them on others, and figure out what it is that I learn. So just a little bit more about me. I've been a financial guide to women and a teacher since 2009. I welcome all of the men who are also here this evening. I am of particular interest in the way women are socialized not to think about money and the added layers of guilt and shame and struggle that women encounter as a result of that. That's really the mission of DailyWorth. But we have many, many men joining us, and I hope you have something to learn tonight, and I'm glad you are here. So I am also, what I really am, is the CEO of Worth Financial. You may not have heard of that because it's not a public brand. It's actually a holding company that has many different services, one of which is DailyWorth. We've been expanding a lot. One of which is called MoneyType, which is what I'm here to tell you about tonight. A class called Money Clarity, and there's others. I'm going to stop there for now because it would probably not serve you for me to go into all of that right at this moment. In college, I studied urban planning and computer science. Now, why am I in financial services when I studied urban planning and computer science? The reason is that I didn't really go to school to study stocks and bonds. I went to school in order to study what it is that makes communities and people happier. That's really what urban planning was to me about, is how do I create communities that thrive? And computer science, because I've just always loved computers. So really DailyWorth and the other things you're gonna see here tonight are really a result of my desire to make the world a better place, to make your life a better place, and how it is I use digital technologies in order to facilitate that. Just, I'm a single mom based in Philly, just letting you know where I am physically located so you understand who it is you are listening to this evening. So here's what we're gonna talk about tonight. Why typical financial advice is broken. I've already belabored that point a bit, I think. How I designed a system that makes it work as intended. What's MoneyType and how does it work? What's the one thing you need to do to control your finances? I know that's why you were all here, and I cannot wait to show it to you. And then where do you go from here? Once I've explained to you what it is that you can do in order to control your finances, and even what it is you can do to bring about long-term security for yourself, then what? What do you do with that information? So I talk to a lot of people every day. I get about 100 emails every day now, and I read all of them. I'm responding to as many as I possibly can. And a lot of them sound something like this. I'm an architect. Life is full but overwhelming. I'm tired of feeling like there's never enough money. I have about $70,000 saved and also a lot of debt. No matter what I do, I can't seem to get ahead. Does that sound like you? Does that sound a little bit like you? Maybe it doesn't sound anything like you. As we go on tonight, it is okay if the material that I'm presenting doesn't resonate with you. No problem. What my work is really about is listening as best I can without a filter to as many of DailyWorth's million subscribers as I can, and to distill down what it is that is most in common for most women so that I can help women move forward with their finances. I'm thrilled that many of you come here and want to learn as well. I don't believe I'm going to help everyone. I just hope that I help a lot of people. So DailyWorth is a platform, as I mentioned, that I've been running for 8 years, and MoneyType is an assessment that I created as a result of a specific recognition. So I'm going to turn off the screen share for a second and look at all of you, since you have been staring at a presentation here for a while. Hi, everybody. I am back here now. Can you see me? There we go. Okay, here I am. I just want to come back and say hello to you again for a bit. So here's why I created MoneyType. For many years, DailyWorth was an advertising business where our revenue model was specifically with regards to selling advertising for all of the different financial services companies. It makes sense. We're a business. We deliver financial advice. And in order to thrive as a business, most media companies sell advertising. Now, as a result of selling that advertising, I got to interact with almost every bank, every financial services company out there, and really understand how is it that they engage people to know about their services, and what is it that women in particular think about these different products and services. And what I found was quite odd. And here's what was odd about taking, and I'll give you lots of examples, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, Edelman, Betterment, Wealthfront, all these different brokerages who would purchase advertising at one time or another on the DailyWorth newsletter. And most of them, almost all of the time, talked about goals as the central and most valuable thing you can do with your finances. And that's quite logical. It's like, okay, if you want to go somewhere with regards to your finances, you set goals. However, what I found in the actual distribution of that advertising was that most people look at the idea of setting goals and they're not like, ooh, I want to be a part of that. That doesn't necessarily resonate with me. And what I would hear across the industry as a result, because most of DailyWorth's subscribership is female, was that women aren't interested in money. And I was thinking to myself, that's completely ridiculous. How is it that someone could not be interested in money? Okay, sure, maybe you're not interested in the dollars and cents and the change of it all. But to say that you're just completely uninterested in money, I just knew that wasn't true. So I thought, what is it that is actually interesting about money to women? So I went to Dr. Jennifer Selig, who is a professor at the Pacifica Institute in Santa Barbara, California. And she is an expert in the psychology and philosophy of someone named Carl Jung. He's a psychologist who was alive about 100 years ago or more. And if you've heard of the Myers-Briggs assessment, the Myers-Briggs assessment is also based on his work. And the idea behind his work is we all have these stories that shape our lives. And when you know about those stories, you know what's actually going to be interesting to someone. So I thought, what if we take that type of psychology and we apply it to women and money? Let's see what happens. So we recruited a group of about 200 women, and for 3 months, we studied everything that we could about what it is they think and don't think about money. And what we discovered was that there are essentially 5 core personalities. Now, everyone is nuanced. No one is a single personality and not any of the other personalities. But for the sake of understanding women's motivation around money, and specifically what works for women around money and what doesn't work, this is what we found. So what I'm about to show you is MoneyType, which is ultimately going to explain to you more than goal setting, more than budgeting, more than creating plans. What is the one fundamental thing that is more important to you than anything as far as making sure that you are in control of your money? I am now just taking a quick check of the chat just to see if I can say hi to anybody. Hello, everyone. I'm seeing all of you talking here and making sure that this is happening. All right, so now I'm going to present MoneyType to you. This is what you've all been waiting for. Thank you so much for being patient through our technical support issues and hearing the story. Some of you have heard it before. Some of you have never seen me before. And what I'm going to show you next is the content with regards to what we discovered around MoneyType and how it is going to specifically apply to you. Okay, great. So MoneyType, as I mentioned, came out of years of working with financial services companies and seeing how the way in which money was framed didn't resonate with most women. So as a result of it, we learned about what I discovered is there's actually a core element of everyone's personality that has the greatest impact on their financial future. And it begins with your subconscious. And this is slightly difficult to wrap your head around at first, although hopefully after I explain it, it makes sense. Essentially, if you think about it, we all have certain things that make us us. For me, it's the fact that I'm a risk-taking entrepreneur. It means that I have charisma, I have extrovertedness, I have passion, and that's all demonstrated externally to all of you. That's probably quite clear. As a result of having those characteristics, those characteristics have a negative impact on money. They have a positive impact on money, but they also have a negative impact on money. So here is what a MoneyType report consists of and what that looks like. So first of all, what I want you to notice about MoneyType, now we're really getting into the content here of what I brought all of you here. I just wanted you first to know who I was and how I got here. So here is the crux of MoneyType. Everyone is a combination of 5 types: a visionary, producer, nurturer, epicure, and independent. I am going to go through what each of these 5 money types are, and I welcome you to take out a pencil and paper to maybe jot down some notes and say which one of these sounds the most like me. And I want to explain to you, Carl Jung, philosophy, psychology, this type of narrative psychology that we have based all of this on is not science. It's not that it's fact. Once you decide this is you, you may change throughout your life. It's really a tool to help you bring self-awareness to things about yourself that you may not have seen otherwise. When you see those percentages under visionary, producer, nurturer, epicure, and independent, that's actually me, Amanda Steinberg's personal scores. Your scores will look completely different when you take the assessment. What I'm going to do is just simply use these scores as a way to explain me to see if it either reflects back to you or some other aspect of this story gives you insights into this one key factor that you are looking for by being here this evening. So here's what they mean, and listen for which one sounds like you. Based on the 25,000 data points that we have for MoneyType now, we know that 80% of you have one primary, and the other 20% of you are more of a mix between multiple. So see if you can figure out if you are very much like one money type or if you're a mix of many. So first are the visionaries. Visionaries equate money with self-expression and passion. These are the people who may seem larger than life, are the ones who are typically entrepreneurs and who live in the future moment, sometimes have trouble with details. The producers are grounded, consistent, and they really enjoy accumulating money. You know that friend of yours that has the big emergency fund that you're jealous of? Maybe, maybe not. Everyone tells me their financial situations, and so I often know. And I'm always in awe of the people who manage to save despite all the pressures to spend. The nurturers see money as a tool to help others. Relationships are everything to the nurturer. The epicure is the larger than life, the one who seeks pleasure, who loves beauty, who is often dressed incredibly well, who has a gorgeous, meticulous home. If you may have noticed on the previous slide, I'm 13% epicure. I am so not this person. I have to get other people to dress me in order to make sure my clothes match. But the epicure, on the other hand, is always stylish, beautiful, and everything is perfectly put together. The independent, if any of you are independents, I will be so grateful that you are taking part in this webinar, because independents typically do not even want anything to do with money. It's simply not interesting to them. They really just want freedom and autonomy from everything. And the typical trait of the independents is that they don't even think about money or rules or anything for that matter. So every money type has an upside and a downside when it comes to your money. Here is the downside. I hope you have identified your money type. If you haven't yet, maybe you'll recognize it through the downside that you know is most similar to you. Visionaries take excessive risk, which eats cash flow. You'll know you're a visionary if you often say, I'll do anything to make this work. Producers avoid risk, which prohibits growth. And I'll explain what that means in a bit. They say, I don't want to lose what I have. That might actually sound good, and that does actually lead to cash savings, but it has a negative impact on your finances overall, which I'll be explaining in the next slide. Nurturers forget that they are part of the equation. They lend or gift money before they save, often saying, they need this money more than I do. And as a result of that, it's almost as though nurturers find themselves in the way they take care of others. You can see how that might be somewhat problematic with regards to money. Epicures overspend. That's the easiest one to identify. Epicures, like visionaries, love money. They don't have the negative feelings about money that some of the others do. However, they have a lot of trouble differentiating what's worth and not worth purchasing, and believe that if something has quality, it is just worth spending money on no matter what. Independents ignore their money. And that, as I'm sure you can imagine, can be quite a problem. So what is the one thing that you can change that will have the greatest impact? I'm going to drum roll. That's my drum roll. It really depends on which money type most resonates with you. Here is an introduction to what it is that's going to have a greater impact on you than setting goals, than putting yourself on an austerity program, than restricting yourself from lattes and all the other things that you may or may not have tried in the past. Here are the things that are going to have the most impact on you. If you identify with being a visionary, you simply need to reduce the number of risks you take by increasing consistency. Epicures make non-essential purchases from a different account. So what I'm going to explain to you, you epicures, is that you need to actually separate your bill paying account, your savings account, and your spend account so that you can only purchase things from your specific spend account, not your income. This is critical. Nurturers. I have an exciting idea for you. I really want you to listen up to me here because I know how much you love taking care of others, and I am not going to change that. I am not encouraging anyone to change their money types in any fashion. What I am encouraging you to think about is how you save money for yourself is how you are better able to take care of others. So actually, by giving your money away to others so that you don't have any is making you less able to take care of others. Independence. You're a tough one because you are probably, I'm psyched if you're still here with me tonight. Independence, in order to really mitigate the risk of the fact that you don't want to pay attention to money, you really need to automate everything. And I highly encourage you to hire someone if you can afford it. Figure out someone else in your family to hold you accountable if you can't. Someone you know who is going to hold you accountable. That is the only way I have found independents have really been able to make enormous progress with their finances is if they get the right accountant, advisor, coach, making sure that they are doing all of the things. For independents, money is actually a pathway to freedom. I know at least 2 self-made multimillionaire independents. They have just been incredibly successful. Now, holding on to it and managing it and not wasting tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars unknowingly is really what their challenge is as a result of that. For the producers, producers typically have the least amount of financial problems just because they're such good savers. But what producers need to realize is that not taking any risks is actually a risk unto itself. So engage in calculated risks. You want to engage in calculated risks. I'll give you an example. If there's a lot of folks that I have come across who keep all of their savings in savings, maybe 10 years worth of savings, 20 years of savings in a savings account. If that money does not have any risk against it, if it's not invested, even in index funds or ETFs or passively invested mutual funds, that money isn't going to grow and it's actually going to significantly decrease in value over time. It's simply a level of awareness that producers need to understand that no risk is a risk unto itself. To go slightly more in depth, once you've identified which one it is that's really, really, really getting in your way of your financial future, here's some more ideas on very specifically what you can do in order to scaffold yourself so that these tendencies, so here's the thing, you're probably not going to change. You probably don't want to change. Me, you saw I was 100% visionary in my MoneyType report. I love being a visionary. It's enabled me to build big businesses. It's enabled me to live my passion and do really, really, really exciting things. So I'm probably not going to stop doing that. However, when I recognize the impact it has on my finances, I realize that it's in my best interest to modify or build structures around myself so that I can protect myself from myself. I say that kind of laughingly, but I'm completely serious. So, takes too much risk for the visionary. I have to remove as much risk as possible by making sure I always have consistent income. As visionaries, because of their lifestyles, typically don't have consistent income, and also increasing my savings. I actually have 3 different emergency funds. And you may laugh at me, but I've learned over the years that the more money I can save that isn't in my day-to-day presence, the more likely I'm able to account for the fact that I take risks that I can't see. The epicures really need to adopt, if you have a spending problem. Look, if you're an epicure who's paying off your credit card bill at the end of every month and has a big savings account, that may not be the thing that you really need to guard yourself against. However, if you are struggling to really save and not spend everything that you have, here's the critical thing you need to do. Only save to spend by separating your spending account from your bill pay account. So what I mean is I literally mean set up 2 checking accounts, and which each with 2 debit cards attached to it, and pay yourself what you can afford to spend on anything that isn't bills, and just spend out of that. I do this, even though I don't have a strong epicure, I did need to control my spending, and it is night and day. Every 2 weeks when I get my paycheck, I take a certain amount and I transfer it out of my bill pay account and into my spending account. And when that money goes low, tough, I can't spend any money. There's nothing else I can do. And that's fine. The other thing for epicures is to keep your overhead low. Because you love beautiful things, because you love spending money, don't buy the biggest house you can afford. Buy the smallest house that you can possibly live with, because then you can decorate and spend money on making it beautiful, and you don't have to deal with the horrifying mortgage and all the things that you're going to have to pay for that's going to eat into your ability to spend. Nurturers. I love my nurturers. I like surrounding myself with nurturers because they take care of me. So nurturers, you equate giving and love. So the thing that you need to do is you need to equal however much you give and gift to other people with your own personal savings, dollar for dollar. So are you loaning your cousin $200 because she needs it? Make sure at the same time that out of your spending account of which you're loaning that money, that you are also saving for yourself the same $200. Just remember, I know this is going to sound very weird to you because saving feels selfish to nurturers. Remember that a more prosperous you makes you a better caretaker. You can love and help without spending or giving money. That's a huge one, is that for a lot of nurturers, they feel like they're not being loving if they don't give money to people. I know some of you might be thinking, wow, I got to go find some nurturers to borrow money from. Please don't do that. In all seriousness, make sure as a nurturer, you start to go, you know what? I need to take care of myself so that I can be stronger for myself and others. You guys get the point. I'm belaboring this. Moving on to the independence. Independence, you ignore your money. All right. So you have to get that money is actually an awesome pathway to freedom. You don't have to listen to anyone. You don't have to be dependent on anyone. When you have all this money to yourself, you are in control and you are free. One way to handle that, automate everything. Don't miss payments because you are most likely to check out. So make sure that you spend the time to automate stuff so you don't have to worry as much. As I said, hire someone to hold you accountable and make savings a priority, because you just have to be prepared for the fact that you may disconnect sometimes. It happens for you. The producer. Okay, the producer, you're the one I'm worried least about, as long as you are taking more risks. You just have to make sure you are investing more of that savings, because you are missing out on, potentially based on when you start, if money doubles, this is a broad generalization. Typically, money can double about every 10 years if it's invested properly. You're missing out on doubling your money every 10 years if you're just leaving it in savings, and it's losing value because of inflation. And that's going to make your later years in life far more difficult than they needed to be because you were worried about risk. So you need to learn about how to take a calculated risk as opposed to an excessive risk. That is the distinction that is critical for you. So now what do you do with all this information? what you're going to do with this information is something I am going to tell you about. That's a philosophy that my mama taught me. And I'm going to turn, because I couldn't see the comments when I was doing all of that. What I believe is the real secret to finance, now that I've told you about your money types, is not earning more income. That's another one of those misnomers out there that is really misleading for folks. It's not about necessarily understanding how it is that you make more income so that you can save more. It's about how you build roots. Roots is the key to long-term security. And what I mean by roots is really 3 ways to build investments for your future. I'm going to give you these 3 ways that you can build investments for your future. And then I'm going to show you, based on what you believe your money type is, which roots that you should be building. And once you understand your money type, what it is that risk that about your personality that is going to be most likely to sabotage your work, and then understand which roots you can build, I'm going to be super happy, because I have given you what I've been working on for so long, which is a clear and straightforward path that can work for any woman in terms of how it is you create long-term financial security for yourself. So, roots. Roots are the things that ultimately are the thing they're going to provide you security. Why are they going to provide you security? Because the reality is whether or not you want to work forever, you can't really work forever. And I just have a feeling that most of you don't want to have to work forever. The only way you get to not work forever is if you build roots. Roots are investments that appreciate over time. Now that's critical, because as I told you in the beginning, if you, I bought a house that put me into debt. I ran a business that had a lot of spiky cash flow that definitely did not turn into an investment. So there are really 3 types of roots that you can build. Again, if you have a pencil and paper out, you might want to write this down. The 3 types of roots that you can build include owning a home. That's an asset. It's an asset when it is designed properly to appreciate for you. The second is an investment account. And an investment account can either be your 401k, an IRA, or another type of portfolio that's a mix of stock market investments. And the third type of root is owning a business. Now, owning a business is a tricky one, because owning a business can't always be turned into cash. Sure, it may generate an income for you, but you can't always sell your business the way you can sell a house or sell your stocks. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about which roots are best for you based on what your money type is. I'm just going to reiterate for you one more time why it is I'm telling you this. I invited you on this webinar tonight because I wanted to explain to you what it is about your personality, the way you view the world, that is the biggest risk to your long-term financial security. I hope that you were able to gather from that what your biggest risk is. And it was like, oh yeah, that's what I keep doing over and over and over again. Once you do that, what is it that you do with that information? What I'm explaining to you is what you do with that information is really turn your attention to the long term in terms of how you're building security for yourself by what roots you choose to learn about and ultimately invest in. So now I'm going to show you 2 more slides, and then we're going to get to the big grand finale of tonight's webinar and take it from there. So I'm going to go back onto screen share. I'm going to learn how this platform works after all. Application window. There are 3 types of roots. There's owning a home, there's owning stocks, and there's owning a business. See these cute icons here? That is actually what they mean. This blue one right here is a house. That means owning real estate. This one here is a pie chart. That means owning different types of stocks and bonds. And this one over here is a shopping cart, which is like owning a business. Those are the 3 typical ways in which you build long-term security for yourself. Now, I was kind of ridiculous when I turned 30 because I was doing all 3 of those at once. Visionary, way too much risk. I highly recommend against doing all 3 of these at one time if you haven't mastered one of them yet. So here's what I do recommend. Now, if you have already identified yourself as one of these types primarily, and you have a different set of roots in your life, that's fine. And if it's working for you, great. This is really directed against those of you who are confused about what it is you should be focused on. Here's what you should be focused on. The visionary, because you are typically entrepreneurial, which means you're experimenting with lots of things, should that you have a business. That's why you have the far right one checked, as well as investing in a portfolio, specifically your long-term retirement, because most retirement portfolios, not all, but most term retirement portfolios should be low risk in that they grow with the market as opposed to being extremely spiky or risky. Homes, on the other hand, can be very expensive and require an enormous amount of upkeep and investment. They don't grow as quickly as you may think. So that's why visionaries should own a business and a stock portfolio. Independence, you also, simply because you don't want to be tied down. It's very hard to own a home when you're an independent if you suddenly want to get up and move. That's why businesses enable your freedom, and portfolios, as long as you know that your portfolio is designed properly up front, you only need to check it about once a year. So that's why those are really good two roots for you. The nurturer clearly is going to be more interested in owning a home because rootedness in particular is important to you. The epicure, because your physical space is so vital to you, and to producers because it's very methodical and easier to live a stable and secure life when you own a home. Businesses can feel very, very unnerving to nurturers and to producers, and for epicures, I'm concerned as to the impact it would have on your finances. This is a recommendation. What I am doing here is I'm saying, now that you have a sense of what your money type may be, how is it that you translate that? Now that you've figured out how to protect yourself from making that mistake, now how do you translate that into long-term security? What I hope I've done for you this evening is given you an overview of how it is that your unique personality makes all the rest of financial advice make sense to you in a way that actually relates to you. Now, before I complete tonight's webinar with you, what I'm going back and forth off of the screen share and saying hello to you again. So before we all go this evening, I hope that you really learned something tonight that was illuminating for you. If you've been thinking up until tonight, do I just need to make more money? Why is it that I can't get ahead of my savings? Why is it that I feel like I don't know what to focus on and I'm overwhelmed? I hope that this gave you a clear path to your personality and what it is that you need in order to be successful financially. Now, before we conclude tonight, I want to tell you lastly about a program that we are now offering at DailyWorth that we first developed in 2013. It's now that you know all of this, how do you really put it into action? It's called Money Clarity, and we first launched it in 2013 and have been running it since then and just brought it back again 2 weeks ago. I brought it back because, as I've observed over the years, as I mentioned in the beginning, there is one common denominator amongst almost all women that I meet through DailyWorth, and that common denominator is overwhelm. And what her question often is similar to what mine was, is how do I go from having a sense of anxiety and fear around finances to a total sense of clarity and control? So I want all of you to know, for those of you who are interested, that I also teach a program called Money Clarity, which you can visit at moneyclarity.com, which is a 10-step program beginning with MoneyType that takes you all the way through what bank accounts that you need. How is it that you calculate your net worth? What type of investments account do you need? How do you set up the difference between the spending account from the savings account so that your cash flow makes sense? Do you pay down your debt first, or do you build your emergency fund? All of these questions that, frankly, no one ever taught us. How is it that we are supposed to know all of this stuff when most of us didn't learn it from school and most of us didn't learn it from our parents? It's kind of ridiculous that no one ever taught it to us. So we have realized that it is our job at DailyWorth to put together that baseline program for you so that you can sign up, which I really, really hope you do, so that you can take some of what you've learned and all of what you've learned tonight and implement it in your life. Now, I have been teaching this program, as I mentioned, from 2013. The price for the program is typically $400. If you go to moneyclarity.com right now and you look at the curriculum, you will see that we are charging $347 if you pay all of it upfront, as opposed to $400 if you pay 4 installments. If you sign up as a result of watching this webinar, simply use the code MoneyType47. That's MoneyType47. And if you use that code, you will get an additional $47 off, and the price of the program is $300. Now, I've got to tell you, if you're thinking about taking this program and you're wondering if it's worth it, we have all sorts of steps and activities that happen throughout the 4-week program that teach you ways to save and cut your spending that in most cases will earn you back the value of the program within the time frame of the program. I always do all the activities myself. I earned back $120 yesterday by changing my actions because I was following the curriculum that I created. We are so confident that the value of this course is worth the money that we charge, that if you can demonstrate for us that you have implemented all of the steps over the course of a year and it still doesn't save you the price of the program, that we will pay you double the money back. So I'm Amanda Steinberg. I started DailyWorth because my life's purpose is about making sure that every woman feels clarity and control over her finances. That is not the case right now. And I find that to be a social travesty. I've dedicated the last 8 years of my life by figuring out exactly how to help you as best I can transition from a life experience of anxiety to having total clarity and control. I hope you enjoyed tonight's webinar, and I really, really hope that you sign up for Money Clarity tonight so that we can take everything that you learned tonight about your money type and about your roots and actually implement them together so that the future of your finances change. Thank you so much for your patience with us and with our technical challenges. And I will be going out on the internet to find all of you after this and have continued conversations. Thank you again so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully in Money Clarity. Good night, everybody.